October 14, 1992, 3:27 p.m., Paramount Studios, Stage 7, Hollywood, California. 34-year-old Prince Rogers Nelson had arrived for what was supposed to be a simple 5-minute cameo in acclaimed director Harrison Ford's prestige drama, The Color of Truth, a film already being whispered about as Oscar material before filming was complete. But when 67-year-old director Mitchell Goldstein, winner of 3 Academy Awards and architect of some of Hollywood's most critically acclaimed dramas, looked at Prince with undisguised contempt and announced to the entire cast and crew, "I don't know why the studio insisted on stunt casting a pop singer in a serious film. This boy has no training, no understanding of the craft, and frankly no business attempting to act alongside real professionals who've spent decades perfecting their art." Quote, "He unknowingly triggered the most legendary single-scene performance in cinema history." Prince's response wasn't argument or offense. It was a 17-minute, unscripted dramatic monologue that left seasoned actors weeping, hardened crew members applauding, and studio executives scrambling to rewrite the entire film around what would become the most talked-about performance of 1993. Ultimately stealing every award from the movie's intended star and proving that some forms of genius operate beyond the boundaries that even Hollywood's greatest minds think they understand. If you believe that true artistry transcends categories and that the most powerful performances come from authentic emotion rather than formal technique, please subscribe to witness the moment when one unscripted scene redefined what Hollywood thought was possible, and how a musician's raw honesty shattered every preconception about the difference between performing music and performing life. The Color of Truth had been conceived as Mitchell Goldstein's masterpiece, a complex character study about racial tensions in 1960s Detroit that was designed to showcase the dramatic range of established Hollywood stars while addressing serious social issues that Academy voters traditionally rewarded. The film starred veteran actors James Morrison, Catherine Walsh, and Michael Rodriguez in lead roles, with supporting performances from Broadway legend Patricia Chen and character actor David Martinez. Prince's involvement in the project had come through an unusual series of circumstances that reflected both his growing interest in film and the movie industry's recognition of his cultural influence. Warner Brothers executives, seeking to capitalize on Prince's mainstream appeal following his success with Purple Rain and, quote, Under the Cherry Moon, had negotiated a small role for him in Goldstein's film as part of a larger entertainment deal. The character Prince was supposed to play was Marcus Williams, a young jazz musician in 1960s Detroit, whose brief appearance in the film's second act would provide musical authenticity to a nightclub scene, while giving Prince an opportunity to perform one of his songs within the movie's narrative structure. The role required no significant acting, just the ability to look convincing while performing music and deliver 3 lines of dialogue. Mitchell Goldstein had initially opposed Prince's casting, viewing it as typical studio interference that prioritized commercial considerations over artistic integrity. At 67, Goldstein was a director from Hollywood's golden age who had built his reputation on films that showcased serious dramatic performances by classically trained actors. He had won Academy Awards for Streets of Fire, 1976, Breaking Point, 1983, and The Last Stand, 1989, all character-driven dramas that demonstrated his ability to extract powerful performances from actors working at the peak of their abilities. In Goldstein's view, Prince represented everything wrong with contemporary Hollywood's tendency to prioritize celebrity over craft. He saw Prince as a talented musician who had achieved success in his own field but lacked the training, experience, and fundamental understanding of dramatic performance required to contribute meaningfully to serious cinema. The tension between Goldstein and Prince had been evident from their first meeting during pre-production conferences. Goldstein treated Prince with polite condescension, addressing him as if he were an amateur who needed to be carefully managed rather than a creative professional deserving of respect. "Mr. Nelson," Goldstein had said during their initial script reading, "I want you to understand that film acting is quite different from musical performance. In music, you can rely on energy and charisma to connect with audiences. In drama, you need to find truth within your character's motivations, understand subtext, and serve the story rather than serving yourself." Prince had listened without responding, recognizing Goldstein's assumptions about his abilities, but choosing not to argue with someone whose mind was clearly already made up. The filming schedule for Prince's scenes had been deliberately minimized to accommodate what Goldstein assumed would be Prince's limited availability and acting capability. Prince was scheduled for just 2 days of shooting, 1 day for the nightclub performance scene and 1 day for his brief dialogue sequence with the film's lead actors. But when Prince arrived at Paramount Studios on October 14th, he brought with him something that Goldstein hadn't expected: a deep understanding of the character, the historical context, and the social themes that the film was trying to address. Prince had spent weeks researching 1960s Detroit, studying the city's music scene, racial tensions, and cultural dynamics that had shaped the environment his character would have experienced. More importantly, Prince had developed a backstory for Marcus Williams that went far beyond what the script required. He understood the character's motivations, family history, dreams, fears, and relationships in ways that gave him a foundation for performance that many professionally trained actors might have envied. The confrontation that would change cinema history began during Prince's first scene rehearsal. Goldstein was directing the nightclub sequence, working with Prince and the other actors to establish the staging, camera movements, and emotional tone that would serve the film's narrative requirements. Prince's approach to the scene immediately impressed the other actors, who recognized that he was bringing a level of preparation and character understanding that went far beyond what anyone had expected from a celebrity cameo. Catherine Walsh, the film's female lead, later said that Prince's performance choices during rehearsal were more thoughtful and emotionally authentic than what I've seen from some actors with 20 years of experience. But Goldstein interpreted Prince's performance differently. He saw Prince's natural charisma and stage presence as proof that Prince was trying to dominate scenes rather than serve the film's story. When Prince began improvising dialogue that deepened his character's relationship to the main narrative, Goldstein became increasingly frustrated. "Mr. Nelson," Goldstein interrupted during the third rehearsal, "I appreciate your enthusiasm, but we need to stick to the script. This isn't a music video where you can improvise whatever feels good in the moment. This is a carefully constructed drama where every line serves a specific purpose." Prince nodded politely, but continued to approach the character with the same depth and creativity that had made him one of the most innovative musicians of his generation. The final confrontation came when Goldstein called for a lunch break and addressed the cast and crew while Prince was still within earshot. "I want everyone to understand what we're trying to accomplish here," Goldstein announced, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to complete control over his creative environment. "This film is about serious themes: racial justice, economic inequality, the struggle for dignity in an unjust system. These are subjects that require actors who understand the weight of what they're portraying." Goldstein looked directly at Prince as he continued, "I don't know why the studio insisted on stunt casting a pop singer in a serious film. This boy has no training, no understanding of the craft, and frankly no business attempting to act alongside real professionals who've spent decades perfecting their art." The words hung in the air like a slap across the face. The cast and crew fell silent, recognizing that they were witnessing an unprecedented public humiliation of a major celebrity by one of Hollywood's most respected directors. Prince looked at Goldstein for a long moment, his expression showing no anger or surprise. Just the kind of calm assessment that comes from years of dealing with people who mistake credentials for wisdom. Before we reveal how Prince responded to this public insult and what happened when one unscripted moment of authentic emotion shattered every assumption about the difference between musical and dramatic performance, let me ask you, have you ever been dismissed because of your background rather than your abilities? Have you seen someone exceed every expectation through pure authenticity? Share your thoughts in the comments, because what happened next became a masterclass in how genuine artistry transcends every artificial boundary that critics try to construct. Prince walked to the center of stage 7, positioned himself under the main lighting grid, and looked directly at Goldstein with the kind of focused intensity that had made his live performances legendary. "Mitchell," Prince said quietly, his voice carrying clearly through the soundstage, "you're right that I don't have formal training. But you're wrong about everything else. Would you like me to show you what understanding the craft actually looks like?" Without waiting for Goldstein's response, Prince began what would become the most extraordinary unscripted performance in Hollywood history. Drawing entirely from his own life experience, Prince began speaking as Marcus Williams, but with an emotional authenticity that transformed the character from a simple plot device into a fully realized human being. He spoke about growing up poor in North Minneapolis, about watching his father struggle with addiction while trying to maintain his dignity as a musician, about the weight of carrying family dreams on shoulders too young to bear them. But Prince wasn't just reciting autobiography. He was channeling universal experiences of struggle, hope, disappointment, and resilience through the specific circumstances of a young black musician in 1960s Detroit. He spoke about music as both escape and responsibility, about the impossible balance between artistic integrity and commercial survival, about the loneliness of being the only person in your family who believed the dreams were worth pursuing. "You want to know what I understand about craft?" Prince said, his voice building intensity while never losing its conversational intimacy. "I understand that real performance isn't about technique, it's about truth. It's about finding something in yourself that connects to something in the character, that connects to something universal in the audience." Prince moved around the stage as he spoke, using the space with the same natural command that made his concerts feel like intimate conversations, despite their massive scale. The seasoned actors watched in amazement as Prince demonstrated perfect understanding of blocking, camera angles, and emotional pacing without any apparent conscious effort. "Marcus Williams isn't just some jazz musician in a nightclub," Prince continued, his performance building to moments of quiet intensity that left everyone present completely captivated. "He's every young person who has ever believed that their art mattered more than their circumstances. He's every dreamer who has had to choose between integrity and survival. He's every son who has watched his father's dreams die and wondered whether his own dreams are worth the risk." For 17 minutes, Prince delivered a monologue that covered Marcus Williams's entire life story, his relationships with family members, his dreams of musical success, his fear of failure, his understanding of the racial and economic forces that limited his opportunities, and his determination to create something beautiful despite circumstances designed to crush hope. The performance was mesmerizing not just because of its emotional power, but because of Prince's complete understanding of dramatic structure. Without any formal training, he had instinctively created a character arc that moved from vulnerability to strength to wisdom, building emotional intensity while maintaining perfect control over pacing and rhythm. When Prince finally stopped speaking, Stage 7 remained silent for nearly a minute. Seasoned actors who had spent decades perfecting their craft were staring at Prince with expressions of amazement and professional humility. Crew members who had worked on hundreds of films were wiping tears from their eyes. Catherine Walsh was the first to speak. "That was the most extraordinary piece of acting I've ever witnessed," she said, her voice filled with genuine emotion. "You just created an entire human being from nothing, and made all of us believe in him completely." James Morrison, the film's male lead and a veteran of over 40 films, nodded in agreement. "Prince, I don't know how you did that, but you just demonstrated something that most of us spend our entire careers trying to achieve." But the most significant reaction came from Mitchell Goldstein himself. The director who had publicly humiliated Prince just minutes earlier was standing with tears in his eyes, clearly struggling to process what he had just witnessed. "Prince," Goldstein said slowly, "I owe you an apology. What you just did, that wasn't acting in any conventional sense. That was something deeper. You found truth in that character that I didn't even know existed." Goldstein paused, looking around at his cast and crew, who were still processing the emotional impact of Prince's impromptu performance. "I've been directing for 30 years, Goldstein continued. "I've worked with the greatest actors of my generation. What you just did was beyond technique, beyond training, beyond anything I thought I understood about dramatic performance." Prince listened without apparent triumph or satisfaction, recognizing that Goldstein's acknowledgement represented genuine professional recognition rather than empty praise. "Mitchell," Prince replied, "the only difference between musical performance and dramatic performance is that music lets you hide behind melodies. Drama forces you to stand naked in front of people and trust that your truth will connect with their truth. I've been doing that on stage for 15 years. The impact of Prince's unscripted performance extended far beyond that single afternoon. Word of what had happened on Stage 7 spread throughout Hollywood within hours, attracting studio executives, agents, and other directors who wanted to witness Prince's dramatic abilities firsthand. Warner Brothers executives, recognizing that they had discovered something extraordinary, immediately began negotiations to expand Prince's role in The Color of Truth from a small cameo to a major supporting character. The script was rewritten to incorporate elements from Prince's improvised backstory, creating a character arc that would showcase his dramatic range while serving the film's narrative needs. But the most significant change came in Mitchell Goldstein's approach to directing Prince. The director who had dismissed Prince as an amateur became his most enthusiastic advocate, working with him to develop performance techniques that combined Prince's natural emotional authenticity with the technical skills required for film acting. "Prince taught me something I had forgotten after 30 years in Hollywood," Goldstein told Variety magazine during the film's post-production period. "The greatest performances don't come from technique. They come from artists who have lived enough life to understand truth when they see it, and who have the courage to share that truth with audiences." When The Color of Truth was released in March 1993, Prince's expanded performance became the film's most acclaimed element. Critics who had expected a celebrity stunt casting were amazed by the depth and authenticity of his dramatic work. Roger Ebert wrote, "Prince Rogers Nelson delivers what may be the most surprising supporting performance of the year. His Marcus Williams is fully realized, emotionally complex, and completely convincing. This is not a musician trying to act. This is an artist demonstrating that authentic talent transcends categorical boundaries." The New York Times critic Janet Maslin noted, "Prince's performance serves as a reminder that the most powerful acting often comes from performers who bring lived experience rather than formal training to their roles. His Marcus Williams feels more real than many characters created by veteran actors." At the 1994 Academy Awards ceremony, Prince received a nomination for Best Supporting Actor, an unprecedented achievement for a musician making his serious dramatic debut. While he didn't win the award, his nomination was seen as validation of his transition from musical to cinematic artistry. More importantly, Prince's success in The Color of Truth opened doors for other musicians to pursue serious acting opportunities, demonstrating that crossover success was possible for artists willing to approach new mediums with the same dedication they brought to their original crafts. When Prince died in 2016, Mitchell Goldstein issued a statement that honored both Prince's artistic contribution and the lesson he had taught about the nature of authentic performance. "Prince showed me that great acting isn't about training or technique. It's about having the courage to be completely honest in front of strangers and having lived enough life to understand what honesty actually means." His 17-minute improvisation on Stage 7 remains the most extraordinary piece of dramatic performance I've witnessed in 50 years of making films. Today, the unscripted monologue Prince delivered that October afternoon is studied in acting schools as an example of how emotional authenticity can transcend formal training. The recording of his impromptu performance is preserved in the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences archives as a historical document of spontaneous artistic genius. Stage 7 at Paramount Studios, where Prince's dramatic breakthrough occurred, now features a small plaque that reads, "October 14, 1992. The day authenticity proved more powerful than technique, and one unscripted moment redefined what Hollywood thought was possible." Prince Rogers Nelson demonstrated that artistry recognizes no boundaries when expressed with sufficient honesty and courage, and that the most powerful performances come from artists who understand that all great art, whether musical or dramatic, requires the willingness to reveal truth that connects with universal human experience. A musician proved to Hollywood's elite that authentic emotion transcends every artificial category that critics construct, and that some forms of genius operate beyond the boundaries that even the most experienced professionals think they understand. If this story reminds you that true artistry transcends categories and that the most powerful performances come from authentic emotion rather than formal technique, please subscribe to keep these lessons alive. Because the world needs more examples of how genuine talent breaks through every barrier that institutions try to maintain, and how authentic expression always triumphs over empty credentials.